Welcome to Phillip Island, Victoria in Australia. What a setting we have for this great sporting contest, the Little Penguin Sea to Dune race. Nervous moments always as they gather on the beach, the tension mounting, and away they go. There's the defending champion, wearing his familiar navy blue and white, great waddling style. Another pre-race favourite though, losing touch with the pack. Maybe that's why. A few too many fish in the day's feeding. There's a familiar face, Skip McIntyre, 8 times a champion back in the 90s, a very successful coach now, keeping a keen eye on proceedings. This the leading group, one or two still able to put on a show for the camera, others just ploughing straight over it. Some resorting to shortcuts. Sad that cheating has crept into this beautiful sport. The judges will have a look at that. But up at the front, the pace is relentless, closing in on those sand dunes that will offer a bed for the night. The fatigue starting to tell. Who's got the finishing kick up on the outside? What a turn of pace from that one, whichever one it is. No answer from the rest, and he takes victory. What a win. There we are, into the Burrow, building an extension with his winnings, and back tomorrow to try and defend his title here on Phillip Island.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to Penguin Live TV. My name is Steven. I'm going to be your host tonight. I'm going to be showing you the penguins, and joining me tonight, I have the wonderful Roland.
The wonderful Roland. What a lovely introduction. Thanks so much, Stephen. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this evening's Live Penguin TV. I'm going to be looking at your comments in Facebook and YouTube as well, and checking out on some of your guesses also to see if you got last night's penguin count. There's a few close calls in there. No one's on the money just yet. Keep them coming in. We'll let you know soon.
Fantastic. All right. Now, if you wanted to, you can put your guesses in the comments to see how many penguins there were last night. You could also guess how many penguins are about to cross the beach, but it's not a hard one. I think there's just 2 in the ocean right there. So we'll keep our eyes on these penguins, see if they decide to cross on their own. Penguins do prefer the safety of numbers when crossing our beach, so it's unlikely that we'll see just 2 penguins as the first group crossing the beach. It does happen, but it's a bit unusual for that to happen. All right, so thanks for tuning in tonight. I do want to say a big womanjika to Malal. Welcome to Phillip Island. I always like to acknowledge the Bunurong as the traditional custodians of the land and pay our respects to the elders both past, present, and emerging. And this beautiful island is known as Malal to the Bunurong, and they've been visiting Phillip Island seasonally for thousands of years, a long, long time. And they used to visit seasonally during the more summer months rather than the winter months. Phillip Island, if you've ever been here in the winter months, it's not the warmest place in the world. We have penguins after all, and penguins are notoriously famous for being in cold weather climates. So our winter months can be a little bit chilly. The Bunurong would come during the summer months and they'd follow the shearwaters when the shearwaters would be coming back during the summer months. And they wouldn't be too interested into our penguins. We never found any evidence that the Bunurong used to eat penguins. And there's a very good reason for that, why people don't eat penguins. And that is because they taste revolting. The first Europeans that came to Phillip Island were sealers. They used to hunt the seals off Phillip Island hundreds of years ago, and they thought, this is an easy to catch bird. Maybe I should try and cook it up. It'll be a good source of food in case we get hungry. So they did. They cooked up a penguin, and then they threw up, because penguins are revoltingly oily. Almost impossible for us to digest just with the sheer amount of oil that they have on them. So it's a very good defense mechanism against people, is to be inedible to humans. So our penguins have a bit of an advantage protecting themselves against us. All right. Now we're just going to wait for our penguins to show up. It does take them some time, especially when it's so bright outside. As you can see, the sky is quite bright on the horizon, and our penguins, they only cross under the cover of darkness. If they're coming out in the daytime too early, there is a danger that there might be a bird of prey lurking around in the sky that will take them home for dinner. So our penguins, the clever ones anyways, know not to come out of the water until it's dark enough. And these two right here, they're pretty eager, but you can see them, they just don't feel safe. They're coming out of the ocean and they're running back, and then they're coming out again, and then they're running back again. This happens a lot. If they can get the safety of numbers, they might cross even in this brightness, but if they don't, that's all right. We just have to wait. We just have to be patient. The penguins come when they are ready. Now, while we're waiting, I'm just going to do a quick scan across the beach, see if any other penguins are lurking nearby. Ooh, have a beautiful look down here. I always like to do a quick scan of our beaches before the stream starts, just to see what's happening, see how the conditions of the beach are looking. We got this beautiful ramp heading up into the sand dunes that our penguins absolutely love to use. It's a much easier climb for them than the sheer cliffing. And we also got Sally in that skybox down there. She'll be counting our penguins tonight. Bit hard to zoom in on her, but she's going to be desperately trying to count all the penguins that are crossing this beach tonight. And if you tune in tomorrow night, we'll let you know how many penguins are crossing the beach. Now, speaking of how many penguins are crossing the beach, we've had a few guesses as to how many penguins crossed our beach last night. Roland?
We have indeed had a few, and if there was chocolate, I would be giving it to Moni, who came in at 699. So she was within 15 of the real number.
Fantastic.
The final count having been last night, 714 penguins.
Yeah, you know what? You would have won our chocolate bar last night if you were here at the Penguin Parade, because every night we do have a penguin lottery, and the winner does get a chocolate bar for getting the closest guess. Although you guys do have a bit of an advantage. You're trying to guess the numbers after you've already seen them counting, whereas we here at the Penguin Parade, we put our guesses in before the count starts, and whoever gets the closest gets the chocolate bar. And it does depend on the season what the numbers we expect to do, because right now we'd be guessing, some people might be guessing in the 700s, 500s, 800s, but in summertime we might be expecting 1,000, maybe more, 2,000. And on the really, really good nights, you even get as high as 3,000, which is an obscene number of penguins. And it's really hard for our penguin counters to count that many penguins, especially on a high tide. You're just doing your best. Sometimes you can't even do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're doing 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Okay, there's about 782 penguins in that group. Sure. It's really tricky to count them. And speaking of tricky to count, we've got our first group right here. Sally just spotted them, and she told me that they were coming up to the water's edge. And she's going to do her best to count this group. So I want you guys to put your guesses in the comments as to how many penguins are going to cross the beach in this group. Now, if you are an authentic penguin counter who works here at the Penguin Parade, you would have to wait until that group crosses at least halfway across the beach. Because there's every chance that an animal might jump across the beach. A kangaroo will be bounding across the beach and it'll split the group into two. And then you counted a whole group, but then they split off and you're not sure if it's a 50-50 divide or 70-30. You have to recount them again. So to save you the trouble of trying to count 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, because the penguins keep going out and coming back and changing numbers, just wait until they're most of the way across the beach and then start counting. That's the trick to it. It saves you a lot of grief and headaches by doing it this way. Now these penguins aren't in any rush. They're just hanging around on the water's edge. They're scoping it out, making sure it is safe. And penguins who live in their natural environment know that their natural predators and native predators all go to sleep at night. They know it is safe to cross the beach at night. And we here at the Phillip Island Nature Parks, of which the Penguin Parade is part of, we do our best to keep our penguins safe from the invasive animals, the feral pests, feral cats and foxes. We have done a fantastic job of getting rid of all of the foxes on Phillip Island, so the penguins no longer have to worry about those animals at nighttime coming to get them. And one fox is quite devastating to our penguins. They can kill up to 40 penguins in a single night, which is a lot of penguins, more than a fox could ever eat, more than a fox's family could ever eat. It's too much. And it's not good for the penguins either when feral animals are coming in and causing such havoc for their numbers. So we've done a really good job of getting rid of all of the feral foxes. We've done a really good job of controlling our feral cat population. We do make sure that we try and capture as many of the feral cats who do enter into our penguin colony and get them out of here. We don't want them eating our penguins either, going after their eggs or their chicks. All right, so Sally just said that we have a start to the count tonight. So we're going to hang on for a little bit before we send you the numbers. So do your best. She said they've already started crossing the beach. She's already started the official count, which means that you can count these penguins here as they're desperately dashing across the beach, getting to the safety of the sand dunes. There's a few who are left in the water. Oh, let's just get a better position for you there. A few left in the water on the top left of the screen, just under the logo there. They might be waiting for the next group to show up. Oh no, Sally. You're going to have to -1 from your count. Maybe 2. Couple of scared penguins. Uh-oh, her number's going to be off if she started counting too early. That's why you don't count too early, ladies and gentlemen, because sometimes the penguins like to run away. So if you write down your number on the pen and paper on the sheet before the penguins have fully crossed the beach, then you have to scribble it out and write a new number to make sure you get the right count. All right, we will be listening for Sally over the radio to see if she can give us a penguin number that crossed this beach. Oh, fantastic. And I love watching these guys sitting on the resting rocks or in the salon, just biding their time. Some of them like to preen themselves, make themselves beautiful before they get home. Others, they're in a rush. You can see they're already in the puddle, going underneath our stand on a journey home. Oh, I'm just hearing it. All right, so Sally gave me a play-by-play of how the went. She says there was 81. No, she said it was 81 in the group, and then one ran back, and then one stopped and then continued on. So she's going to call it a flat 80 in the group. So 80 penguins in that first group. Did we have any close guesses to that there, Roland?
We certainly did. We've had 70s, 80s, 90s. We've had some really, really close calls to that.
Fantastic. You guys could be honorary penguin counters here. It's a tricky job counting our penguins, especially on the high tides, but I know that all of you have been putting in a bit of practice, and maybe you'll be able to help us count one day. Now, I love watching these penguins going on the journey home. I'd love to be able to follow the ones underneath the screen. Actually, they're just here on the Penguin Highway. Let me swap cameras there for a second. And here they come waddling along. Some of these penguins might not have heard about the restrictions that we have in place, and they're wondering, where's everybody gone? Where's our fan club? They're used to people cheering their arrival, being really excited about them being here. But unfortunately, I zoomed in way too much there, sorry. But unfortunately for us, we do have some restrictions in place, but we'd like to share our penguins with you anyways. So thanks for tuning into the Live Penguin TV, where we're bringing these penguins to you in your own homes. We got some really nice lighting still in the sky. It's not too dark just yet, so we get some good views of our penguins heading down our Penguin Highway. Now, this group of penguins that we have going on right here is probably one of the biggest groups that we're going to get tonight. We might get a few bigger groups. Let me swap back to the main beach camera. Sorry, I'm in the wrong spot, just looking at a couple of penguins there. Now we might get some more groups of penguins. Oh, nothing too much, but I see a big group out here. And for all of you who watch our Penguin Live TV, this is a top tip for you when you come to see our penguins in person. The groups here on Penguins Plus are far bigger than the groups we get elsewhere on the beach. The general viewing tickets, the groups that you might get would be 10, 15 penguins in size, much smaller than these large groups that we get here at the Penguins Plus. So whenever my friends or family come to visit, and they ask, what ticket should I get to the Penguin Parade? I always say, get the Penguins Plus tickets. It's really worth the upgrade. Hopefully, we'll be able to welcome all of you when we can open our doors again. You can come and see our penguins in person. Because while it's one thing to love watching our penguins coming home in the comfort of your living room, I'm not a very good penguin impersonator. Jordan's pretty good. I think she likes to say she's a lot better than she really is. But she doesn't lack confidence in her attempts at doing penguin calls. However, none of us are completely fluent in penguin talk. I think they have, oh dear. We just got a feral cat wandering on that upper screen there. That's not good. Here I am saying we're doing a really good job of controlling our feral pests, and life likes to prove me wrong sometimes. We will be calling Stu, who is our feral pest control officer. He will be out here tonight to try and catch that cat. I'm not going to call him live on the stream right now. The cat's not going far. We know where it is. I think Roland's actually on it. He's texting him right now. So we've already got that under control. We will hopefully get the cat we'll trap the cat before it manages to get any of our penguins. Now cats, they generally don't like to eat penguins too much. It's not their favorite food, so while we are concerned it will eat other native animals, and we don't want it here, hopefully our penguins will be fine. Please don't prove me wrong again, life. I don't like it when you do that. It's a little bit embarrassing too to be just broadcasting that to the world, but this is important work we're doing. Sorry, Sally's just giving me the group that crossed, the numbers in the group that just crossed. It is important the work we do here, because without our officers who are able to come and protect our penguins, the feral cats would be here in greater numbers and they'd be overrunning this penguin colony. And the penguins would be suffering as a result. So while it is unfortunate that we do see signs of this, it does let us know that we are doing very important work here at the Penguin Parade. And it's important to us, it's important for us to continue our work. Because if we don't, these penguins would not be doing so well here on Phillip Island. They're still battling a lot of invasive plants and a lot of invasive animals too. And ideally, we want to get our numbers of feral animals down to 0 on Phillip Island. Now, whether that's possible or not is up to our rangers who are working on the ground to decide. But we're going to follow this group along and see if they can make it on their journey home. We'll see what happens. Oh, we should have cleaned that little spot off the screen there. There they go, on their journey home. Don't worry, they're keeping an eye out, making sure that they're going to make it home in safety. Love to see these groups sticking together. They know how to find their way home. They know what is safest to be in a large group, because the safety of numbers will bring them home. All right, let's swap back over to the main highway again, just because this is where the large groups of penguins are going to be. We'll keep our eyes on the highway as well, see if any can come back. Now, whenever I see a feral cat here, I always think of the movie Cinderella, where they called the cat Lucifer, and I think that's a pretty good name for a feral cat here as well. They don't belong here, and we do our best to make sure that we'll keep their numbers away from our penguins. Oh, fantastic. Let's swap over to the highway camera. Sorry, I was just controlling the highway camera. Ooh, you guys are too fast for me. You're in a rush to get home. They must have been talking to each other through C-mail, telling them that there might be an invasive feral cat in here, and they're doing their best to get home quickly. No dilly-dallying around here on the boardwalks. They're in a rush to get home, because they'll be safe once they get back to their burrows. Sorry, I did hear from our penguin counter that the last big group that we had, we actually watched that large group crossing the beach. There was about 195 in that group. So we had a couple of big groups. That group of 80 was quite large, and then they doubled in size, just over doubled in size to hit that 190 or so mark. And yeah, that's really good sizes for this time of year. Now, Roland, do we have any questions in the comments?
We have some questions. We've also got an update. I've already been on to Stu, our pest animal manager. He's onto it, and he came back and said, is it a grey or a ginger tabby? Because clearly we've got a couple of recalcitrants down here, so he knows. Now, I caught a glimpse of it. It looked grey to me.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
It was definitely a grey one.
Yeah.
So Stu's already aware of this cat. He knows it's here, and he'll be coming down, I'm sure.
Absolutely. He's on his way.
There we go.
In terms of questions from one of our younger viewers, young Charlotte, who's 7, is actually just curious, what's happening in the penguin life cycle at the moment? Is it breeding, mating, molting? What's going on, Stephen?
Great. So this time of year, that's a great question from Charlotte.
Charlotte, who is 7. Yep.
Thanks, Charlotte, who is 7. Oh, something scared up. Is that a goose? Probably. Oh, there's the goose. Well, what's happening to our penguins right now is they're more terrified of a goose than they are of a feral cat, which is a bit funny because the goose is not actually a threat to them. Well, it's a bit of a bully, but it's not a threat to their lives, I should say. So the penguins' breeding season hasn't quite started just yet. We've seen a few penguins here and there engaging in breeding behavior. We've even seen some eggs in the colony, and one of our researchers said they saw one set of eggs already hatched, which is very unusual for this time of year. But the breeding season is not too far away. So some of our penguins are starting to get in that mind frame. Maybe the males don't have a partner for this breeding season yet. So they're making their homes, their burrows, nice and beautiful. They're going around and choosing all their favorite bits of grass and decorating their house, cleaning out the old grass, making sure that it looks nice and clean. It looks well presentable because there's no way a lady is going to choose to move in with a man who has a messy house. They want a responsible dad, one who's going to help to clean up the house. So the ladies can be as picky as they like. They can choose any male they really want to be with. And the males have to make their effort in attracting the females. So the males right now might be doing a bit of burrow preparation if they're getting into that mindset. Some of them are trying to fatten themselves up because nothing says I am an attractive penguin than by being a big penguin. The bigger a penguin you are, the more attractive you would be to the opposite sex. So they're not quite in the phase of having the babies just yet, but they will be soon. It's not too far away. Ooh, that's a big group. Another big group. We are being spoilt by big groups tonight. So good. And the breeding season will be coming soon, and we'll be hoping to see maybe some baby penguins in the not too distant future. We never know exactly when the breeding season will start. It does vary depending on quite a few factors in the environment, how warm the ocean temperatures are, how warm the environment is in general. All of these do have an impact. Hello, wallabies. Scaring our penguins a little bit by bouncing around. Fantastic. Lovely little wallaby there just in the front of our penguins making their way across the rocks. And soon when the breeding season does start, we'll start seeing our penguins pairing up for the season, and that'll be going until about February. So it's quite a long breeding season for our penguins, and some of them might be able to have 2 sets of eggs, which is a really good breeding season if they are able to do that. And others who might not be able to get the 2 sets of eggs, they might just try for the 1 set of eggs this year and just take care of those 2 babies as best they can. Oh, that's a good one. Any more questions?
I've got more than I could poke a stick at, Stephen. So going back a little way to, and again, one of our younger viewers, young Isaac, who is 6, wants to know why we've got a penguin tunnel. Now, I'm wondering if Isaac's thinking about the penguins that go underneath the Penguins Plus stand, or have you got another thought there, Stephen?
There could be the penguins that go underneath our stand. There are also places in New Zealand where they have made tunnels for penguins to go underneath roads so they can safely travel home. We do not have a penguin tunnel so much here. We do have a penguin weighbridge where we kind of make a bit of a tunnel for our penguins to walk through. It's not a covered tunnel. It's more of a narrowing pathway. It gets the penguins to walk across our weighbridge so they can our researchers can see how much those penguins weigh when they walk across. But no, we don't have a tunnel here. If we were to have too many penguins on our roads around here and they were threatened by cars driving, we would be able to make some tunnels underneath our roads to give our penguins safe access. Sometimes I think we need to make a tunnel to get around this goose, because definitely does scare our penguins a little bit, doesn't it? But that said, we close off our entire peninsula here, the Summerlands Peninsula. All the gates are shut. No cars are allowed on the roads. And that way, the penguins, they don't need a tunnel to go under the roads. They can sit on top of the roads if they like all night long, because there are no cars that are able to be, there are no cars able to access the peninsula. So our penguins are safe to be wherever they like on this peninsula at night. And they're not threatened. Oh, that's a great question. All right, let's swap over to the highway camera because I can see a few penguins. Oh, zoom out. There we go. I love the way they're just looking around. Even though they've reached the safety of the sand dunes, they're always keeping an eye out, which is a good thing, fellas, because there is a cat around here. And we want to make sure you guys get home safely. There they go, heading down the pathway. I'm not sure if you can see, well, I'll scan up a little bit. In the bright light, you can see some silhouettes of penguins on the right screen in between myself and the main highway cam, not the highway camera, the main beach camera above my head. So they like to have a few resting spots here and there. And luckily for our penguins, they don't seem to be fussed by the cat that's wandering around. I'm sure the cat's not even interested in them. They're after more exciting prey than penguins. Ooh, and another big group waddling their way just past the highway camera. And as we're looking at these penguin bums, do we have any more questions?
Well, there's a bit of interest in what's happening with Bluey at the moment, Stephen.
Oh, what's happening
with Bluey? Do we have a Bluey update?
We do not really have a Bluey update. I'm going to go back to the... Oops, sorry, wrong one. I'm going to go back to the main beach camera for this one. I don't have to control as much and follow as many penguins using this camera, so I can think a little more clearly. Now, I'm going to bring in the burrow. Let's see if I can get that up. The burrow camera. Nobody's in the burrow right now. Bluey would not be coming into this burrow anyways. Mom and Dad probably wouldn't welcome them home. Once the penguins fledge, that's it with Mom and Dad. They're on their own in the world. They've got to make their own way. And Bluey right now is probably around Kangaroo Island. That's where we find most of our young penguins tend to go after they've been hatched. There's a lot of food over there. And they spend about a bit of a gap year even out near Kangaroo Island, getting as many fish as they can. Let me get rid of this burrow camera. Getting as many fish as they can, learning how to fish. They are not ready to come home to have babies until they're at least 2, maybe 3 years old. I say generally it's around 3 years old, sometimes as early as 2 years old. So Bluey, we're probably not going to see them again. We might see them in February if they decide to come home and molt. Because they do need to come back to their home to molt. But otherwise, it's unlikely that we're going to see much of a glimpse of them until he's old enough to have their own babies. I don't even know if Bluey's a boy or a girl. Did we ever find out if Bluey was a boy or a girl?
I have a funny feeling Paula, when she did her last burrow check, had thought that Bluey could have been a female, been a girl, a female. Mm-hmm. But of course, when they're still chicks, when they're still young, their beaks are still developing. So it's a bit of an inexact science.
Yeah, so we don't know if Bluey is a boy or a girl for sure just yet. But if Bluey does come back into our research sites, Bluey does have a microchip. We can scan their microchip. And when they come back, they'll be old enough for us to know if they are a boy or a girl. They're going to grow into their beak properly. So stay tuned for the next, maybe in a year or so, we'll be able to tell you if Bluey's a boy or a girl. And I'm sure Paula will be following Bluey's development with great interest. We've all got a bit of a soft spot for Bluey. Let's go back here, see if any more penguins are crossing the beach. Ooh, the group's not quite as big down here. You can see a group of, how many is that? Well, 6, maybe 7 penguins. A bit hard to see with the pixelation on my camera, but maybe 6 or 7 penguins crossing the beach here. The groups might be getting smaller as the night goes on. We might get one more good-sized group, but we'll have to be patient and wait and see. And these penguins here on the rocks, they're just resting, they're relaxing. They've made it across the danger of the beach. They have a lot of burrows they can hide in if there's anything dangerous around. So they're preening themselves, they're calming down after a very hectic day out in the ocean. Because when our penguins are out on the water, they are frantically looking for fish. It's pretty high energy for them. Swimming around, diving underwater. Our penguins might be diving 700 times in a single day, sometimes even more if they're looking for more fish. And on average, we find their dives to be around 25 seconds in length. So for you at home, if you can, maybe you could try and hold your breath for 25 seconds. If you've got a little watch on your wrist, just set a timer and hold your breath for 25 seconds. I'll keep talking while you're doing that. Have no fear. But 25 seconds is quite a long time, isn't it? It haven't hit there just yet. I'm sure you've got to keep going a little bit longer. But it's sometimes after a longer and longer time, you're really getting out of breath. You're starting to really fight that urge to just breathe. And when you do get to that 25 seconds, might be there right now, take a breath and you might be puffing a little bit. Unless you're an Olympic swimmer, holding your breath for 25 seconds might leave you a little bit out of breath. Now imagine doing that 700 times in a single day. That's a lot. Our penguins have been working hard out on the ocean to catch their food. And while we call the ocean their supermarket, it's not always easy for them because they got a big swim to find their fish and then they've got to chase it down. And the fish are pretty quick, but our penguins are a little bit faster. So it's not easy being a penguin. And if they want to take a few minutes on these rocks to rest after a really hectic day trying to catch all the fish that they could, I'm not going to hold it against them. They deserved their little break there. And I'm always really impressed by the penguins who don't even take a rest. They just plow on through, pushing past all the other penguins, squeezing their way past, and they're on a journey home. There's no rest for the wicked. A couple more penguins up here, just hanging around on the pathway up the hill. And as we're watching these, how about another question?
Absolutely, Stephen. We've got a couple of questions about how our numbers that are coming up at the moment compare with, for instance, same time last year. And I know we haven't obviously got our records in front of us, so it's a bit hard to compare night by night. But we'd have to say it's been a fairly strong year so far this year, hasn't it, with penguin numbers?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. I'm not going to say it's a record number of penguins. It depends on the season. Sometimes our breeding season does start in August. So when the breeding season does tend to start a little bit earlier, we get higher numbers of penguins coming home. That said, compared to most years, I would say it's above average for sure. Usually during the winter months, we're expecting to see 300-400 penguins. We're coming in here expecting lower numbers, bracing ourselves to get lower number of penguins, which is a bit more challenging to make it engaging for our viewers who come and see the penguins. But doing live penguin TV, it's easy for me right now with so many penguins. And this goose, oh my gosh, what's happening here? Are you going to be upset with these penguins?
There's another goose gate brewing.
Yeah, oh dear, you're not, oh, run away. Oh, yeah, you don't want to pick a fight with a goose, little penguins. You're not going to win that one. One-on-one, that goose has got a bit of a size advantage against you. Now, these penguins, if they weren't so stubborn, they could go up and over the goose. They could go down and under the goose. But they are tenacious little penguins. They got their pathway right there. They want that pathway. And it doesn't matter if a Goliath is standing in front of them. They want to go on that pathway. So the penguins, I have a lot of sympathy for them because they're fighting above their weight class for sure. But a lot of respect for them for not being too intimidated by it. Because eventually they're going to push their way past a goose, even though it's not the safest thing for them to be doing. Little ninja penguins, I think they're trying to sneak past. And now penguins are not the stealthiest of animals here on land. In the water, they are incredibly stealthy. If you've ever seen a penguin swimming in the ocean, they are graceful, they are agile, they are quick. But on land, not so much. Run away, run away. Oh dear. Yeah.
Two snuck through while she wasn't looking,
Yeah.
but the other ones.
Now, I lose a bit of patience for this goose here because it's more grass for them up or down the pathway, because this pathway has been worn down by the penguins. It's like those cartoons we used to watch as a child, where the cartoon person would walk back and forth and they'd wear out a pathway in the ground and it'd get lower and lower. That basically is what's happening here with our penguins. They've worn down the pathway so much that no grass is growing where the penguins are walking. There's too many little footprints going over and churning up the grass. It can't grow there. So the goose, you're going to have more luck finding grass just going down a few steps. There's no need to stand on the pathway. But the goose is going to do what it wants to do. And sometimes I think it just likes to bully our penguins. I don't think we have too much time left in the stream this evening, so we might call it a 5 minutes from this point onwards. So we're going to ask for a few more questions before we wrap up. I also want to see, we've got a few clever penguins up at the top there. You can see them going around above the penguin. Little bunny there as well, sharing the hillside with the goose. But I want to see if this one little penguin's going to make their way past this goose. It's a brave little penguin all by himself or herself. Not sure if it's a boy or a girl. But it's a bit of a reckless penguin. It's not taking the safe path. It makes me think it might be a boy penguin, making a bit of a risky, silly behavior choice right there. But questions? Do we have any more questions?
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. We've got a really big picture question here about the colony in terms of how the colony, or has the colony itself stabilised, and is there enough food and habitat for the colony to remain this size, to grow, to reduce? So we're talking some big picture questions here, Stephen.
Great. Well, good news is the penguin snuck by the goose. The goose didn't even notice, so it's on its way up the hill. Fantastic. Good on you, little penguin. Big picture questions about the colony of penguins. Now, that's a very interesting one. It seems that our colony has somewhat stabilized a little bit. We've been sitting at 32,000 breeding pairs of penguins. Sorry, not breeding pairs. Breeding penguins. Here on Phillip Island for as long as I've been here, which is 6 or 7 years now. So we've been hovering around that mark. Whether it can go up anymore, yeah, that might have some room to grow a little bit. I need to ask our researchers to get a really good idea of how many penguins we think we can fit on Phillip Island. I am always hoping that there'll be more, but I don't have a 100% sure answer for you on that one. And as far as food sources go for our penguins, there should be enough food for them out in the ocean, as long as humans can minimize the impact we have on overfishing, especially the food that our penguins will use, which we are doing pretty well. There should be enough food for our penguins out there. Bit of a history lesson for those of you who are interested in Phillip Island. There used to be 10 colonies of penguins here on Phillip Island. The Summerlands just being one of the many penguin colonies we used to have. And they estimate very, very roughly that there was around 200,000 penguins that used to live here on Phillip Island. And all of those penguins might have been in the same areas for food, because they're all launching off the same little island here and going out in the ocean looking for food. So I like to imagine that there's enough food for maybe 200,000 penguins, although with the introduction of Europeans and our fishing habits, there might be a little bit less. I just see that group going around the corner. I just wanted to catch them. There we go. So yes, there should be enough food for our penguins if they decide to grow the colony. However, the biggest impact that I find will limit the growth of our penguin colony here on Phillip Island is the availability of safe space for them to breed on. Now, the Summerland Peninsula is quite large, and there's a bit of room for our penguins to move around in. Maybe even to grow a little bit. But once they move beyond how much space is available on the Summerlands Peninsula, there might not be any room for them to safely breed in, because there's lots of areas that are not safe for penguins to call home here on Phillip Island. And while we would love to make it safe for them in the future, might be a bit above our scope, because as soon as they're out of the Phillip Island nature parks, we can't do any work to really protect them. We can't directly protect them anymore. So once they run out of space, then the numbers will start to stabilize a bit more. Oh, that was a long one.
It was indeed.
Yeah.
Can I squeeze in one more?
Absolutely.
Hopefully a quicker one.
Yep.
Piper is pretty keen to know what species of penguins these are. But of course, what that's done is started a debate in the comments. And so far we've got little penguins, little blue penguins, and fairy penguins.
Great question.
Toss a coin.
So Those are common names, and they're all the same. Sorry, they're all common names for the same bird. The scientific name for this bird is Eudyptula minor, and fairy penguin, little blue penguins. Right now, they all fall under that category. The little blue penguins are the ones that we get in New Zealand. Really, is what they call them in New Zealand more than anywhere else. And I did read a research paper a few years ago that was starting to debate whether the New Zealand penguins might be slightly different than our penguins here. Still debating that in the research circles. Good science takes a long time to resolve itself. So as of right now, officially, the little blue penguins, the little penguins, the fairy penguins, they're all the same penguin. If you want their scientific name, Eudyptula minor, which means good little diver. And they are, I don't know if good little diver is quite adequate. They are excellent little divers. They're better than good. They are quite fantastic. Good questions. I always love good questions. Big picture questions that are always a challenge to try and answer. I've done my best to give you an educated guess. I'm going to have to go and talk to the researchers to get a better idea of whether or not the penguins can grow in size here on Phillip Island. I like to think that they can. I think there's still room in the colony for them to move around and find new homes. And the more weed removals we do on the Summerlands Peninsula, the more revegetation work we do, the more housing area our penguins will have. So we should be able to expand this little penguin colony quite a bit more. At least I hope so. That's my sincere hope. All right, we might stop it there unless you have one last good question.
Oh, look, there's so many to choose from. Let's just talk cats quickly. Mm-hmm. The cat's a threat to the bandicoots as well.
Yep.
And for instance, the Ricali, or is it just penguins? What are the cats a threat to? The feral cats we're talking here, not just your domestic.
Not the domestic house cats that you keep at home.
Safely at home. Yep.
If you keep your cats in your house, they are not a threat to any animals out there. We do recommend keeping your cats in your house. But the feral cats, they're a threat to most species. They're definitely a threat to the eastern barred bandicoots. And the biggest threat that they are for the eastern barred bandicoots is not necessarily their hunting. It's the disease that feral cats carry, toxoplasmosis. It's a disease that they carry. It can actually impact humans as well as the native species. And toxoplasmosis can be quite fatal to small mammals like the eastern barred bandicoot. And our researchers here who are studying the bandicoots, trying to make sure that they're happy and healthy, are hoping that the eastern barred bandicoots can outbreed the spread of toxoplasmosis in the colony of bandicoots here. And as far as I know, it seems to be going really well. I don't think there's any major concerns over that, but there are major concerns over it, but it's something that I don't think is threatening the bandicoots right now. So luckily for our bandicoots, they're very quick little breeders. They have very short, fast, furious lives, just living a few years of age before they die of old age at maybe 3 years. So they're outbreeding the spread of toxoplasmosis, which is just fantastic to see. But the feral cats are quite a problem. And if they can't find, a penguin that they want to eat, they will make a chase out of a bandicoot or a Ricali or maybe even a baby gosling as well. They're not, they are picky eaters. They're not averse at basically having an all-you-can-eat buffet here on Phillip Island. They have no real competition, the feral cats here, and they don't have to compete other animals for their food. They are right at the top of the food chain without any competition, which means that they can run rampant and they can make a devastating impact on the environment. So if I could make one plead to everybody who is watching this live stream, if you have a cat at home, and I have a cat at home, please keep them inside your house. Make sure you spay or neuter your cats. It will do a really good thing for the environment of wherever you are from, because all throughout Australia there are problems with feral cats. They have a devastating impact on the environment, and if you don't spay or neuter your cat and they get out and they breed with a feral cat, they might never come home again, and you'll have more feral cats in the wild, and it's just devastating. So keep your cat safe in your house. Believe me, I know a lot of cat owners here can afford lots of toys for their cats. They will be safe at home. They will have lots of your love, and they won't have any dangers from cars or dogs or foxes. Do a good thing by keeping your cats at home, and you can help keep our penguins safe too. All right. I think that's a good place to wrap up for tonight.
I reckon it is. There was one more question, but you've inadvertently answered it already. The question was, when you announced 5 minutes, the time was up, is that a Stephen 5 minutes or a Jordan 5 minutes? And I think we've answered that it's actually a Jordan 5 minutes, because that was probably 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. So I love the Jordan 5 minutes. Little lapwing running across the screen there on the beach. But yes, we'll wrap it up for tonight. Tune in again tomorrow night. I will be on tomorrow night as well. We're glad to keep bringing you Penguin Live TV while we have our restrictions in place. Hopefully, we can continue doing that for the foreseeable future. And thank you again so much for tuning in, and have a wonderful night. Bye.